Do you think, as a white cis man, you have some privilege in German society?
Yes, I think there's still some privilege attached to be a man and to be white in Germany. And of course, if you combine those two, then it's still a very big privilege. Yeah. Like it's easier for you to go through life because there are expectations um, which you don't have to meet. You know, like for instance, if you are a male at the workplace and you have a picture of your family, if you are a woman, people might assume, okay, she's working so hard, she's not giving enough time to your children. And if you're a man, they would rather be thinking, okay, he's working hard to provide for his family. So, yeah.
And he cares a lot about the family, that he has even picture at his work table, right?
Yeah. So there's still this different perception between men and women. And of course, if even though there were major steps into being less racist as a society, it's still there. Of course, there are very few people who are openly racist for being racist's sake, but it's you can still feel it if you are not white that you have less privilege and things are harder for you, like finding an apartment or finding a job. And yeah, it's still harder.
In your life, I know you have been traveling a lot as well. You have been in Australia as well, for example. You have been in Asia. You have been in Canada. Did you feel the same privilege in those countries as well, just to be a cis man, or plus, of course, cis white man?
Yes. Well, let's talk about Australia first because I spent an extended amount of time there. There, which I was a little surprised by, but if I told that I'm German, people started trusting me more somehow because
Mhm.
they assumed because I'm a German citizen, I'm very reliable, I'm hardworking, they don't have to worry about me. And of course, this had nothing to do with racism, but I heard, for instance, that French citizens had it much harder because somehow from Australians they got perceived as lazy and not hardworking and I don't know, just enjoying everything there is, but not be willing to put hard labor into it. So there I felt it very, very strongly. And of course, not everyone in Australia is racist, but especially if you go to the countryside and you listen to what people who live there say, some of them do have very racist or do say very racist things sometimes, like especially about Asians, because people from Southeast Asia, like there are a lot of people going to Australia for opportunity, and of course, then they will be the target of sentiment because they are in the mind of the people living there.
So to me, it sounds like if we combine these three things together, that you, being a cis man, plus white and plus German, you would agree that it gave you a lot of um, privilege.
It made it easier for me, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Do you think there's a way that we can change this mindset for the world, where, I mean, where we can consider, for example, a cis woman or even a transgender woman, equal with a white cis man?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, of course, all the discrimination from the law has to disappear because we need to stop this systematic discrimination of people with other skin tone or other nationality or other gender or even not being cis, being trans. And then, of course, society, like every individual needs to change their mind, like that people with another skin color, people from another country who are not born here, people who speak another language, they're not inherently evil. They don't want you bad. I think a lot of it is caused by fear still, and people need to understand that yeah, if someone looks different, if someone has a different gender, it doesn't mean that this person is worth less. And it doesn't mean that that person can't work hard or doesn't pay their rent on time or whatever in this certain situation where you are as a landlord or an employer makes you think you should prefer another group.
But don't you think that we need to, a lot of people need to understand their privilege as well, because there are certain things they need to, I think, consider that just because they have certain privileges, this doesn't make them that they are they deserve better in life. I know a lot of people don't do it consciously, or for example, in your case, it was not like um, you chose to be privileged man. Of course, you also didn't. But I think knowing this privilege can help societies a lot as well. Because imagine if there's a one, let's take an example of one straight cis white man. If he understands his privilege, I think he's gonna treat his girlfriend totally different, or women around him, or trans women around him, or people of color around him, only just by knowing this, that yes, I come under a certain privilege, and he doesn't have to feel bad about it, but he just have to acknowledge it.
I know where you are coming from, and I want to agree with you because what you are saying is totally right. Yeah, if you acknowledge the privilege, then you can do something about it. And of course, if you just ignore it, then nothing will change. But I also think that sometimes this privilege debate gets out of hand, where people who have less privilege, and that can have many forms. For instance, we would both agree that a white, straight male, which comes from a wealthy family, has much more privilege than a white, straight male who comes from a poor family, who has to work 40 hours just to put food on the table and keep the roof over their head. And quite often, the discussion goes into a way where it sounds like, yeah, you need to take away from the privileged people, instead of thinking about what can we do to create the same privilege for everyone, so that it's not a privilege anymore for the privileged because everyone has the same opportunities. You know, you don't help anyone if you punish, for instance, white straight males for being white straight males.
But it's not about punishment. It's, at least this is what I want to talk about today, that recognizing it, because I feel like um, I'm living in Europe now more than 15 years. And one of the things which I also noticed, that a lot of cis men, especially white, white cis men, they don't acknowledge, first of all, their privilege. And they basically, when they don't acknowledge their privilege, it makes them to judge others even more. It's bad for them too, because when you are judging someone else, the others are going to judge you back. So in a bigger picture, it's not a win-win for anybody.
I think for most straight white men, it feels like, oh, you want to tell me I'm only where I am because I have privilege,
Which is not, which that's not what we mean, right?
which should never be the case. Of course, even if you have a nice start because your family could bring you through university and you're white and you're male and you're straight, it doesn't mean that you didn't work for what you have. Because there are other white male straight people who didn't get as far as you did, maybe, even though they have the same kind of privilege. But I think we are at a point now, especially in Western societies, where the legal system is kind of free from racism. So the legal system does not connect to skin color, does not connect to, it does still connect to gender sometimes, but not in those outrageous ways which we've seen in the past.
The key word here is, I guess you said kind of, right? Because I want to clarify this for my listeners.
Yeah, well, with gender, yeah, there's still a difference, yeah.
Yeah, it's really important, because it doesn't mean that we don't need to evolve anymore, but yeah, it's much better compared to the past.
We always need to evolve because there will never be a point in time where societies will be perfect, everyone is equal. Like, that will, in my opinion, that will never happen.
And in my opinion, that can happen and that will happen. But okay, yeah, I understand what you mean.
But that also means that we have to constantly think about how fair are the systems, how fair is the way we treat each other, and what do we need to change to make it better. And, if you consider what I said first, that we will never reach the perfect equilibrium where everyone is treated fairly, that means we always have to work on it. We can't do one thing and think, oh yeah, now it's perfect, now it's fine, now we can stop. No, yeah, maybe we fixed for maybe we fix the situation for one group if we actually fix it, because mostly it also takes time. And we also have to look that, yeah, everyone else is still in the boat. So, and maybe if we raise someone up, we have to look that no one else gets pulled down as well. So we constantly have to see where are the problems in our system. And even when the whole mentality changes in people's minds, and everyone would think, okay, yeah, we will not look at skin color, we will not look at gender, we will not look at sexual orientation, we will not look at gender identity, then it still won't be perfect because maybe there will be things we don't even think about yet.
Well, maybe perfection is not the goal, but right now, of course, we are far away from being equal in many things. Especially right now, I would just like to talk about gender equality. So I think just because things can't get perfect doesn't mean that we should be afraid to talk about it enough, and at least try our best to make things perfect in this matter only. Of course, perfection is an illusion anyway, in any case. But I think, especially when it comes to white cis men privilege, my goal, I think, is that, especially you can tell better, first of all, acknowledging this, that it exists and it benefits big time to those white cis men. Again, nothing wrong in that. Let's just acknowledge it, because if we will say that problem doesn't exist, if we will keep on saying that, it means we will be never able to find any solution about it. So what can be the solution once we realize this, that okay, it does exist, what we can do about it as an individual and as a society both? I would like to know your opinion.
So individually you should keep in mind that yes, you worked hard, but for some people it was much harder to get where they are. So in the end, judge less. And for the society, I would say we need to find ways to give people who are not as privileged more support. So, of course, it will be not perfect in the end, but that they can get as close as the privileged people to the same opportunities. Opportunities are key. And if that means that some less privileged groups gets more of social security payments, that's okay because they are getting this because they are systematically stripped from the opportunity.
True, and we are just trying to make things in better balance, right? True, I agree with you. Thank you.